It is Friday, October 14th. Let's talk PlayStation. Happy PlayStation VR launch day. As you can clearly see, I don't have PlayStation VR, nor did I actually release a video of it because I was getting mine delivered and more or less my delivery got effed up. So I actually have to wait a whole other day to get it, which means as of today, because I record this like Thursday night, technically Friday morning, so I will have it very soon after this actually gets uploaded, and that's when you'll see like an unboxing video and everything. Trust me, I'm already kind of annoyed as it is, especially since apparently, pre-orders were totally sold up for like, what, 7-8 months or something. I knew I had a secured unit, and then out of nowhere, it's just like, oh, and guess what? There are a few extra units out in retail stores that I could have went out and bought, but I couldn't have done that gamble at that point because now it has already been shipped and my card was already charged, so, oh well. You'll just have to, I will just have to wait until I get it and until you'll see the unboxing and setup video if you don't have PlayStation VR. But anyway, let's get into our first news story. If you like Steam and you like the Dualshock 4, there's good news. Steam is going to be officially supporting the Dualshock 4. This is their nice little initiative to support a number of controllers on Steam. Dualshock 4 is just apparently the first one that they're going to be doing, and they like it because it is very similar to the current controllers that they're doing. Like, the DualShock 4, for example, has a gyroscope. They like the fact that there's some similarity there, so it is going to be officially supported very soon. So if you are a Steam user, then you can go ahead and start using DualShock 4s very soon. So PS4 Pro is quickly coming on the horizon now that we have PSVR Pros coming just November 10th. And now we know a little bit something more about PlayStation 4 Pro, which is that it has SATA 3.0 hard drive support, which is going to be very interesting for people that perhaps want to put SSDs in their PlayStation 4s. Basically, 3.0, the 3.0 hard drives have a much faster performance rate. So if you were to get an SSD, and this is mostly specific just SSDs, traditional mechanical hard drives can't take advantage of this speed improvement on 3.0. But if you were to have an SSD that is 3.0, do phenomenally well in terms of loading and like boot up times and stuff like that. Even more so than SSDs usually are. That's the thing too, is that SSDs right off the bat are way faster than mechanical hard drives, but if you have a 3.0 SSD, it's going to work even better than it already did before. So if you're the kind of person that has the cash for that, because admittedly SSDs are quite expensive, or you can go the semi-cheaper route, which is an SSHD, so a little bit of both, solid state, and a traditional mechanical hard drive, which is what I've done in my launch PlayStation 4, and I know a couple of people do SSHD, which is always a great choice. But if you do have the extra cash for SSD and you were going to get a PS4 Pro, go for a 3.0 SSD for sure. So if you kind of didn't already notice, Paris Games Week is coming up very soon, just in 2 weeks, and Sony hasn't really said anything about doing a press conference this year, which they have actually done the last 2 years in lieu of Gamescom. They said that Sony's already announced like the games that they're going to be like presenting at Paris Games Week. Like they'll be there, they have floor space and they'll have units that are going to be set up for people to go and play. But basically, Sony has not said anything in regards to having a press conference, which more or less tells us they're not going to have a press conference. Shuhei Yoshida was asked a little bit earlier in the year about if there was going to be another Paris Games Week, to which he said, like, oh, it's not really my decision, that's for Sony's Jim Ryan and whatnot, and that's not necessarily up to him. But it clearly looks like we're not going to be getting one this year, which is not surprising, because they've already had so many shows that they've been doing recently, and now they do have PSX coming up, and PSX is a new show that they kind of threw into the mix, and we're always kind of talking about how there's so many shows that they're doing that they got to spread out their announcements between all these shows quite fairly and quite evenly, which is always to temper your expectations whenever one of these press conferences does happen, because they have so many to cater for now. But the fact that they're not going to be going to one that's why it's not really surprising, because they've been just doing so many of these shows lately. So, which is a little disappointing, because obviously it's exciting. It's always an exciting time when Sony does walk out on stage to announce some stuff, but we do still have PSX in December. So here's something very interesting, and it's no surprise why Sony didn't ever formally announce this before, but now that everyone has PlayStation VR in their hands, we can actually confirm this. But PlayStation VR Cinematic Mode, the kind of mode where basically you can use any sort of content, and of course won't be native 3D, it won't be native virtual reality, it'll be, it'll basically just simulate the screen being right in front of you, so you can play any PS4 game in cinematic mode. We've definitely heard about that, but what we didn't know is that you can actually use cinematic mode in PlayStation VR with any piece of hardware. You can use a Blu-ray player, cable television, even Xbox. You can use an Xbox 360, Xbox One, a PlayStation 3. Basically, it's just the HDMI input. The PlayStation VR will act as the display, and you can just do HDMI right into the breakout box, and you can use PlayStation VR in that way. So that's actually pretty cool. You know, if you do have PlayStation VR, if you were looking at it, I know some people are actually very intrigued by the cinematic mode because they know that they at least have a number of uses for it in that regard, instead of waiting for like the native, the native VR content, or at the very least heavy hitter VR content that makes PlayStation VR sell. You know, cinematic mode's always a nice way to kind of fall back on, because you can at least always use it for that. And now we know you can use it for like all your devices, more or less. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, Sony wouldn't want to tell people, hey, you can also use it for anything, including an Xbox or a PC. But yeah, you actually can do this. So if you were kind of on the edge, maybe this would pop you over the fence. I don't know. And for our final news story, market research firm Superdata was analyzing what PlayStation VR will possibly sell, and there's, you know, more or less saying that they're guesstimating that PlayStation VR will sell around 2.6 million units by the end of 2016. So that's actually a very short time frame. Granted, it's over the holiday season, but they're saying about 2.6 million units, and they're attributing that to the fact that Sony is doing a lot of in-store demos. It's very compelling. It's a low price. We've always talked about how it's kind of hard to put a level, like a number of success on PlayStation VR and any other VR headset. You know, it's kind of hard to gauge that, since this is the first real true run at trying to push VR to the market. So no matter what numbers there are, it's hard to say if they're really good or not. I would say 2.6 million by the end of 2016 is extremely good. They're also saying 2.6 million because of the fact that there's around 44 million PlayStation 4s currently sold. So granted, 2.6 is very small in comparison to 44, but that's a lot of PlayStation 4 users, so only a small margin of those people have to be interested enough to actually buy PlayStation VR. I'm sure Sony would be very happy if they sold 2.6 million just by the end of 2016. I would assume they'd be happy with 2 million sold in, I don't know, something like half a year, I guess, because it is like an expensive piece of kit to ask people to buy. But that is the good thing that they're doing a lot of in-store demos, because that's always the biggest problem with VR, and the biggest problem with convincing people that this is actually cool and it's awesome and it's something worth your time, is that you have to try it. You have to actually put it on your head and have an experience with it. It's so easy to look at it from your computer screen, an online forum or something, and just say, I don't want to pay $500 for something that seems like a total gimmick to me. These people have to try it. So, you know, a lot of sales will certainly come about if you get more people to actually put the damn thing on their heads and look through it. 2.6, yeah, that would be a very good number for them, I think. I mean, lifetime sales for the system, for the, you know, the hardware, you know, like, who knows what Sony would be truly happy with. I think more important than anything, it's the, you know, breeding more software out of it. You know, hardware numbers, sure, you'd like to see a lot of PSVR units being sold, but I think you'd want to see a lot of great, compelling software to come out of there first, and that's how you'd know that you've got a steady flow of reason for people to come into to come in and keep buying PlayStation VR, and thus keeping the platform sustainable, keep manufacturing it, keep pushing it onto developers, getting dev kits out there, and of course what we were talking about last week, working on hardware revisions, actually having some justifiable reason to do that and keep doing R&D on VR. You know, get the content. That's the most important thing, and that's what's going to keep VR alive. Those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. So if you didn't notice, we started the Let's Play. The Let's Play that won is Spyro the Dragon. That got the most votes, because you all voted. Very good job. I applaud all of you. Need for Speed Underground came to a semi-close second, and hardly anybody voted for Katamari, which I'm absolutely baffled by. I fucking love that game. I'm surprised most people aren't intrigued by that game or love it, or I guess it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we like Katamari, but we really want Spyro, so I don't blame you guys. Yeah, I'll have to wait, I guess. Well, these always go up around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so in relation to that time, it'll only be like a few hours until I actually finally get my unit of PSVR, and that's when we'll start doing a bunch of videos and stuff. Line up some reviews, which would obviously take a little bit longer, but you know how the deal goes, so stay tuned for all that good stuff. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you guys next Friday.